American dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
2016, year of the snake. Time for a change in the White House, y'all.
How's it going, Sandy? Good to see you. Let folks know we are live. Click the share button. Let folks know. As you know, Facebook does not let anybody know I'm live. It's like, shh, Suzzanne is live. Shh. Don't let anybody know. They're so mad at me. You got me on a 30-day ban for sharing an article from the New York Post. How's it going, Jim? How's it going, Kirby? Good to see you, Pamela. Good to see you. Yeah. So we'll talk about it in a second. I just want to let everybody get on in the room. Say hello. Good to see everyone. You're listening to Laser Snake. Laser Snake, Make America Great Again. Pamela, Melissa, Rusty, good to see you guys. Welcome, welcome, Tammy. Linda, welcome, welcome, Janine. There's my Marguerite. How's it going? I'm going to talk to you about. I got your message, Joe. Thank you. Ron, how's it going? We're still raising funds, so we're gonna. I'll give you a text. I'll give you a little message. We'll call in a few, Marguerite. You know, as we're still. I'll tell you guys all about it. We're doing something fun here in DC. So, Penny, how's it going? Good to see you. Good to see you, Oneida. There's my friend. I love you, my friend. Make America great again. We're just letting folks come in. Oh, don't want to lose my shirt. I am. I mean, look how worn out my Constitution is. Look at it. It's all bent. Used up. I have several other copies. Don't send me 15 copies. I have many copies. But this one is well loved. So it's like that user manual. Sometimes when you have a car, you get the Chiltons, or the Haynes manual, so you know how to fix your car. This is for people who know how to fix cars. You get the manual. And as you use it, it gets all worn up and greasy, and this is my Constitution. It's been used as a manual. How's it going, Teresa? Good to see you. So that's why mine is all beat up. I use it a lot. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. You are watching the one and only Trump Talk US live in DC with Suzzanne Monk. I am Suzzanne Monk. We're 8 minutes away from the nation's beautiful capital. We're about 15 minutes away from the president's White House. I never know which way to send these bangs in the camera. And they never know which way to behave. All right. Fair enough. So, welcome to the show. Just over here charging, making sure I got everything. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for popping in, Christina Deidre. Good to see you. So, Chris McDonald will be in here at one point, representing Trump Talk US. Please say hello to Chris when you get a chance. And of course, After the show, go to Reopen America. It's over here, reopenamerica.org. You can get some great t-shirts, sweatshirts, but you can also find out more about what we're doing at Reopen America. We're going to be talking about that a lot tonight because, as you know, there's been a lot going on in the country that's certainly been a big distraction. Now, some folks have talked about it being a big distraction from what's happening with Hillary Clinton, with some of the hearings that are going on. I'm not certain about that. Yes, I'm sure these are important things, but I think the distraction really is from what we need to do, which is get our economy back going and to start getting our feet back on the ground when it comes to winning this election for Donald Trump and taking back the Congress. Those are the things that are really important over the next several months that we need to focus on. We are seeing, of course, on the left, distraction after distraction of the shutdowns, the murder hornets, which wasn't really a distraction. I think they just, just something funny to say. So I'm not letting them forget about it. But of course, also these protests, riots, etc. Now we're seeing this push to defund police, to push against police officers. All of those things being a grave concern. How's it going, Jackie? Being a grave concern, knowing what we just saw. We just saw night after night of lawlessness. We didn't need more police officers. How's it going, Karen? We didn't need less police officers. We don't need to defund police. We don't need to demilitarize police. We actually need to increase our police officers, and we need to give them better equipment so they're better prepared to deal with riot situations. And of course, yes, as Penny is saying, now it's the monuments. Now we're back to this ridiculous, let's take down the monuments. Oh, the racist monuments. Let me explain something to you about monuments. Monuments are just history books that you put outside because they can endure the weather. So this idea that we need to keep taking down history is absurd. You don't have to like history. You don't have to agree with history. You don't have to agree with everything a person did to recognize history, to recognize the facts of the situation. And people say, well, there's no statues to Hitler. And, frankly, I wouldn't be mad at a statue of Hitler because I don't think all statues represent honoring or celebrating a person. I think statues represent a history of a person. Now, in many cases, you can debate what is the purpose of the statue, but each and every individual has had their role in history. The reason you make a statue, the historical reason you make a statue, is to remember what they did in history, not every little detail about everybody. We all have flaws. I'm certain these folks who are going around saying so-and-so did this and so-and-so was a sexist and so-and-so was a slaveholder, these same people are abusive in their relationships. These same people have committed their own acts of violence. They're burning stuff. Each individual human being has to answer for their own wholeness as a human being, but that doesn't change some of the things that happened historically. So, and there are those who would tear down things like Auschwitz, things that are monuments to, one would say there's no statues of Hitler. Yes, but there are things that remind us so that we never forget the horror that happened in history, and that we remember what happened so we recognize not to repeat it. That's what's so important. The reason we study history for a variety of things, obviously to learn what great things our ancestors did, to learn what bad things our ancestors did, and to not repeat those things so that we can learn the lessons of history. When you go through experiences as a human being, you learn lessons in life. And what we find is if we study history, we can learn the lessons. We can learn the lessons of those experiences of human beings. We can learn that from World War II, World War I, from prehistory, from Roman times, from Jesus's times. We can learn again and again the lessons from history. And Onadi, you're so true. This is what's true. You can't actually erase history. You can only erase people's understanding of it. You can only make people confused about it. It doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change what happened. And I support this 100%, Pamela. Trump said no to changing the names of military bases. We need to continue to push back on this. But these are the things, these are the distractions. Now that they've started the traditional Black Lives Matter riot, protest, tear down statues cycle that they do, we need to get back to the work at hand. And the work at hand, in my opinion, involves two very important things. One, we have got to get our country reopened. We've got to get our country reopened. And that needs to be 100%. I've noticed that Trump supporters online, many of my patriots, many even of my reopened patriots have gotten a little quiet. Some of them may have been silenced by Facebook. I know I've been silenced by Facebook, but we find our ways to. But we've certainly lost a sense of sort of unity of purpose, a sense of energy of purpose. And we need to regain that. We need to refocus. I think we need to refocus on two very important things. One, reopen America. Exactly what Diane is saying. Reopening America in every possible way. Now, part of that, and I'm glad I pulled Diane's flag picture up, because she has as her profile the thin blue line flag. Part of what's going to be important to reopening America is to assert the protections necessary for our small businesses. So we've got to get in there, just as we were calling and contacting our mayors, contacting our governors, contacting our city councils, contacting our county board, our leadership, letting them know, look, we need to reopen. We need to reopen now. We don't have evidence for why you have us all shut down. We don't understand these ordinances. We have even more leverage now that we have seen protests, large gatherings in nearly every state in the union. We've seen these large gatherings, certainly with no restrictions. We did not see any limitations. Officers were not enforcing any of these shutdown or social distancing orders whatsoever. It's time to assert to our leaders that we can reopen. If people can protest, we can produce. If people can march, we can meet at church. Okay? If people can riot, we can reopen. And we need to push that message to our elected officials. We need to push it to our neighbors. We need to just start being that annoying person who says, you know what, this is all stupid. Stop wearing your mask when you're in public. I'm telling you right now, just make a decision that you're not going to do it. It will be slightly annoying. Why? Why will it be slightly annoying? Because if there's a mask ordinance in your area, you're going to have to be a little bit pushy, because somebody's going to say, ma'am, you have to wear a mask. And you're going to go, no, I have a medical condition that my doctor says to not wear a mask. This is what I say. Now, do they know that my doctor is Dr. Shiva, or is Dr. Many of the other doctors that have advised against wearing a mask? Maybe my doctor is early Dr. Fauci, who also advised against healthy people wearing masks. So but you have to push back. Even today, I went to the grocery store. Officer said, you have to wear a mask. I said, no, I can't wear a mask. My doctor says I cannot wear a mask. And he says, well, but it's the store policy. And I go, sir, you have to let me wear a mask. You have to let me shop without a mask because of the Americans with Disabilities Act. You have to let me shop without a mask. And he's like, but well, it's not me. It's a store policy. I'm like, I get it, but the store can get like a big fine. This is what I do. I go, the store can get like a super big fine if they don't let me shop. So they have to let me shop. So, I just don't want the store to get a fine. I just want to get a few things. And then you just go. You just go and you shop. You're going to have to be pushy. This is what I'm trying to tell everybody. This is what we need. Everybody take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath out. Take a deep breath in. Take a deep breath out. Get your guts going again. Get the fire in the belly going again. We all need to get on board with we're not doing it anymore. We're not doing it anymore, and we push back. Once we get once your grocery store gets used to the fact that you're not going to wear a mask, they're not going to ask you a million times. You're not going to have to go through this over and over. One or two things is going to happen. One, the first time you do it, they're going to be like, okay, and they're going to let you do it. They're going to let you do it no matter what. You might need to make a really big stink, but they'll let you do it. Okay. The second time, they won't make as big of a stink. They will not make as big of a stink. So, because we've already been through this, so you might have to make a small stink. But after, it's going to get calm. And some places you don't have to make a stink at all. Nobody says anything. Just go out and live your life, and that is going to be so critical to reopening. The same, we need to keep pushing back on our governors and mayors. We need to keep pushing back on our leadership. So I'm going to tell we're going to go right back to page 1 of Reopen. Right back to page 1. I need you to contact your governor. I need you to contact your mayor this week. Say in your letter, we need to reopen everything immediately. All events, all gatherings, weddings, funerals. It's completely unfair for protesters to be able to gather in the streets by the thousands, for funerals to be had by certain individuals, but no one else can have these gatherings. No one else can have these events. No one else can have funerals. This is ridiculous. So we need to reopen 100% now. No, none of these restrictions. None of this second wave crap you're telling us about. There's obviously no second wave. If you thought a second wave was happening, you'd have been enforcing your curfews. You'd have been enforcing your shutdown orders. You'd have been enforcing your gathering limits. You wouldn't have let thousands of people be in the street, burn half of everything down, spray paint all over our monuments and buildings, cost millions of dollars in damage and damage prevention. Not to mention overtime hours for police officers, guardsmen, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you guys, in particularly Democrat cities, but across the country, there have been a complete ignoring of any of these social gathering orders whatsoever, any of the features of it. Oh, well, they wore masks. They didn't wear masks. Some people wore masks, some people didn't. And it's dumb. This is the thing. The mask isn't doing anything. Putting a piece of fabric across your mouth isn't doing anything because I can still get moisture through. Idiots. Stop. It's pointless. All of it is pointless. We have to assert that's pointless. No mask ordinances. Now, one of the things that's going to be really a big deal, really important, and you guys got to get started on it right away. What they're going to do in order to have school next year is crazy. It's crazy. And we need to immediately start contacting our school boards, start contacting our principals. If you have a charter school, contact, whomever it is that makes the decisions at your school on how they're going to implement these guidelines. You need to talk to those people. You need to talk to those people and make sure that they know, no, we're not putting children in masks and we're not putting teachers in masks all day. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. No, we're not eliminating gym or any other group activities. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. You need to provide me with evidence as to why children cannot interact with one another as normal before any of these guidelines are going to be implemented. You need to demand that. I, as a parent, need verifiable evidence that the risk to my child and my family is so great that these measures are required. Why do you think we need to do these things? You need to demand that answer of your school board. We did a pretty good job with the mayors. Okay. We could have done better. Got to be honest. We did a pretty good job. We sent letters. We sent emails. We sent phone calls. We got up. We protested. Great. We need to be 10 times pushier with the school board, you guys. We need to be 10 times pushier. What they're going to do to your children, is abominable. Abominable. And even if you homeschool, the other children in your community are going to be exposed to this psychosis. I mean, it's a mind F is really what it is. I'm trying not to cuss. I'm trying to, keep the words clean, but it really is. You're going to put kids in an environment where they're constantly being tested for diseases. Any other kid can give them a disease. You can't share crayons because you could spread a disease. You're going to have reminders over the loudspeaker constantly of this disease that doesn't affect them hardly at all. The statistics are very low for the number of children that are affected. And the CDC, the World Health Organization, has just come out and said you're not spreading it if you're asymptomatic. Children being exposed to the virus and not getting any symptoms is not spreading the virus. I'm going to repeat what I just said because you need to tell your school board this. And when they say no, you go, then show me that proof. We're going to repeat what I just said. Children being exposed to the virus and being asymptomatic, because children, for the most part, are not getting sick from this virus, as we know. Okay? Children being exposed to the virus and being asymptomatic are not spreading the virus. Children are not spreading the virus. Asymptomatic children are not spreading the virus. Children who get exposed and are asymptomatic are not spreading the virus. Period. The World Health Organization says asymptomatic spread, very rare. That's them. That's the people who started this whole mess. And now this is what they're saying. Why? Because they can't keep lying. Because other scientists have jumped on board and said, listen, this is what's actually happening. This is what we actually are seeing. You guys got to stop telling lies. And so they do. This is how it works every single time. They tell you a bunch of lies. The same thing with climate change. They do the same thing with climate change. They do it all the time. Oh, the whole world is going to burn down. And then, oops, we were off a little bit. Our numbers were off. How's it going, Jenna? Good to see you. Oh, yeah, well, I'm not surprised. Yeah, Tammy, we have to vote the dumbs out. They're absolutely out of control. Yeah, see, and this is what I'm saying. Karen says our governor in Rhode Island still holding on to her power trip. North Carolina governor, yes. He just lost the RNC convention. Poor fool, losing millions and millions of dollars of benefit to his state because of his personal choice to play this game with the people. So it's going to be up to us to push back more aggressively. We need to get back on that. The more we can open up our economy, I know it feels much more open when you can go back to, it does to me too, when you can go back to your restaurants, even just a few favorites. You can go back and you can sit outside, or whatever it is the situation is, sits further apart. It seems normal, but these businesses are still struggling. They're still strapped to try to make ends meet from what was deemed, you run a business like a restaurant, you expect to be able to operate at 80 to 90% capacity, and that other, 100% capacity, that 80 to 100 is your profit margin. You're actually, it may cost you a significant amount of your revenue to just run the business, So when you are forced to cut your business down to that lower level, that specific lower percentage level, you really start to see a difficulty to even make ends meet at the business, to even make any kind of profit whatsoever, and in fact not to incur losses. And so we're going to see more and more businesses that continue to go under, even though we're seeing 50%. Your favorite restaurant may open, but it might not stay open. Your favorite little shop may open, but it might not stay open. Your nail salon, your gym, these things may open, but they might not stay open. And what's going to make it possible for them to stay open is for you pushing your governor. We want all the way to phase 4. We want to move quickly through and, in fact, skipping ahead to the final stage. We want to open everything. And, in fact, make sure that your final stage actually is 100% open. If your final stage is not 100% open, you need to definitely be calling, definitely be writing, definitely be complaining to your mayor, to your governor, to your leadership that they need to provide a return to normal now. This idea that we're going to live in a new normal where masks are going to be required, when we're going to live in a new normal where our restaurant capacity is somehow limited, that we're going to live in a new normal where we can't have events more than 250 people. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. We must go back to concerts. We must go back to sporting events. We must go back to these large events that we've had since the beginning of time. And we're going to do that, whether they choose to do that or not. Whether, how's it going, Virginia? Arlene, good to see you. Janice, good to see you. Nick, whether the experts want us to go back to these events, we're going to do that. And if your mayor or your governor is refusing that, or if their plan, and many states now have a plan, a phase plan, you can see their phase system. If your final phase requires a cure or a vaccine, no, you're going to call them. You're mad. You're mad anyway, but you're going to get extra mad. If your final phase doesn't get back to a 100% normal, 100% capacity for your businesses and your venues, no. Unacceptable. Those governors and mayors, I need you to call immediately. First thing in the morning, I need you to call and write and email. I need you to do all three things. You need to get really super mad and on a regular basis. Let them know this is unacceptable. You need to start organizing protests in your state because this is unacceptable. It is unacceptable that we cannot go back to normal, especially with what we're seeing with the virus, what we're seeing with fewer and fewer people contracting the virus, certainly with a complete disdain or disregard for spreading the virus when it behooves the Democrat agenda. And therein is the only reason we need to offer when they say, why do you think we should reopen again? Because clearly, if you are out protesting for a Democrat agenda, as we know, Black Lives Matter is a Democrat-focused organization working in conjunction with anti-Trump organizations on the left and in Antifa and in other anti-fascist, anti-capitalist organizations, communist-affiliated anarchist organizations. If you're out there protesting Trump, it's okay. Gather in big groups. It's totally fine. But if you're out there protesting shutdowns, if you're out there protesting for your freedom to assemble, for your freedom of religion, you're killing everybody. This is the absurdity. We're not taking that anymore. And so we need to push that in our governors, in our mayors, in our council's face. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. What we're doing here in DC, I'm currently raising funds to put up a moving billboard that says exactly this and calls for Mayor Bowser in DC to resign because, as you see, she allowed thousands and thousands of protests to gather in the streets against her shutdown orders and against her curfew. Millions of dollars of damage occurred to the city. If people can protest, we can produce. If people can march, we can meet for prayer. And if people can riot, we can reopen the city. We're going to put that right on the billboard. Mayor Bowser should resign today. So we're working on the graphics. We're working on the fundraising. I will share, usually Chris is in here, but if Chris pops in, he will share the link to that a little bit later in the show. And I'm going to remember to start sharing the link to that on the description so that we have that, so that we can keep raising funds for that. And we've actually done really well. We need about the fundraisers for $3,500. We need about $1,800 in order to do 2 days of advertising. We've already raised about $700. So we're getting there, and certainly we're gonna continue on our mission It may take us a few more days because of the fact that I got shut down on Facebook. So let's talk about this very briefly. If you cannot find me on Facebook, there is a good reason. I have been given a 30-day ban. Both Suzzanne Monk and my backup Suzzanne Monk have been given a 30-day ban for posting. And this is all I posted. I posted nothing else but an article from the New York Post from April 2nd stating that hydroxychloroquine was chosen as the best treatment in a poll by doctors. It was a news article citing this poll by doctors and saying that hydroxychloroquine is listed as the best treatment in this poll of doctors. 30-day ban. 30-day ban for posting this article. So that's why you don't see me on Facebook, but I am still here popping in, doing lives on my backup account, doing the best I can. I am going to start using my page, my fan page, Suzzanne Monk, the Suzzanne Monk MAGA Woman page more, because that way it's going to make it a little easier for me when they keep shutting me down to continue to put stuff out and continue to get the word out to people and continue to share information, share ideas, and motivate people to get up. All right. So we talked about reopening. We talked about how we have to get back into calling our mayors, calling our governors, getting active again, pushing back, especially with the idea that if people can protest, people can be in the streets marching, we can, of course, gather for church, we can gather for business, and we can reopen our restaurants and our schools with normal function. Clearly, the whole thing is out of control, ridiculous at this point. We also need, one of the reasons that it's so important we are able to do that is that we are able to get back into electing this president, Donald Trump. As you know, so much of what we're experiencing, so much of these shenanigans that we've seen from the Democrats throughout 2020 are about this election. They're about this election year. We saw this situation with Black Lives Matter, with the George Floyd case. You know, it's just a matter of opportunity, of course, that they seize on it again and again. We've seen it everywhere. When these Black Lives Matter protests erupt, they're usually a case that's seized on by the organization and propelled to social awareness, to political awareness, to public awareness, and getting people riled up and excited. Nobody would even know who George Floyd was, but for Black Lives Matter, pushing his particular name. And of course, there are many other people who have been killed by cops, both white and black. We don't know their names. We have no idea who they are. So it's a matter of who's convenient for the narrative at the moment. And this is what Black Lives Matter has used in the past and continues to use today to rile up a crowd. Now, part of the reason they want to rile up that crowd is so that their friends in the on the anti-Trump left, which includes, of course, Antifa, includes Democracy Now!, it includes Anti-Racist Action, it includes a variety of various named groups that basically operate as radical leftist groups. So they all oppose they all oppose capitalism, they all oppose the current economic system, they're all opposed to the rich, they're all favoring massive taxation, massive progressive policies. It's very weird. You know, they don't like this idea of oligarchs taking power over them, but then they want to impose the exact policies that lead to oligarchs taking power over them. You try to explain to them, but you know, you can only explain so much, and you do your best, and you hope that you planted a few seeds, and that's all we can do. But we need to get back to winning those votes, and what our election goals are. The reason we see the rise of these Black Lives Matter protests, obviously, the virus was not frightening the Black community. We were certainly losing a grip on the Black community as far as Democrats are concerned. The Democrats were losing the grip on that Black vote. And we've seen it in poll numbers again and again. The Democrats are losing ground in the black community as far as votes. And we saw it with Joe Biden and his ridiculous, if you don't vote for me, you aren't black. You ain't black, excuse me. Behavior. Now, of course, we see with the George Floyd situation, we see Nancy Pelosi and all the Democrats with their kente cloth scarves and they're kneeling. Again, further pandering, further embarrassment. I think they're digging their own grave. I think they're actually digging further into the muck that they were trying to dig themselves out of, which was namely the obvious problem the Democrats have with their candidate. Their candidate is a raging racist. He's been known to be a racist. He, of course, supported the 1994 crime bill. He has made racist references throughout his career. The only reason they protect him over and over is because he's a Democrat. But the reality of the situation is Joe Biden has had his racist foot in his own mouth so many times, I'm pretty sure his shoe no longer has footprint. It has toothprint on the bottom of it. That's how badly I think Joe Biden sticks his foot in his mouth when it comes to the race card. And again, we're seeing the Democrats needing to cover for this candidate. Now, he sucks. The reality of the situation is there's no way that Joe Biden on this or any other earth is going to beat Donald Trump. It's just not going to happen. But that's not even the worst of our worries, because the worst of our concerns, the biggest thing we need to focus on is making sure that we win the House back. So here's what I need you to do. Obviously, we need to continue to support our president. We need to continue to encourage our neighbors, friends, associates, etc., to vote for the president. But I need you to find out two things. Okay? Two very, very, very important things. Thing number one, I need you to find out if any senators, which of your senators are running in this election, and who is your Republican nominee, whether it's the incumbent. I need you to find out who you are supporting in that election, and then I need you to get involved and support that candidate. I need you to actually get involved and actually support that candidate. I need you to tell your neighbors about this senatorial candidate. I need you to tell your friends about your senatorial candidate. I need you to tell your church party, your soccer practice. I need you to go through your phone list in your community. Say, hey, I wanted to talk to you guys, but don't do it until you finish the second thing. Okay, so you're going to find out who's running for Senate and who you're going to be supporting. And then you're going to support that person. You're going to get behind that person. Number two, I need you to find out what district you're in and who is your congressional candidate. Who is the Republican candidate for Congress in your district? And I need you to get behind that candidate. Okay? I need you to support the Republican nominee in your county. And I don't just mean getting out and making sure you vote for them. I mean, know their name, know their platform, talk to other people about these candidates. Convince other people in your district, in your state, to vote for these candidates, for our conservative Republican candidates. We must win back the House. We must protect the Senate. This is how we do it, you guys. It starts with you guys knowing who those candidates are. Knowing who your candidates are. So, we're going to start asking questions. We're going to actually start popping up comments. When you guys learn these answers, you're going to go, we're going to have homework, okay? This is homework. You're going to go out into the world. You're going to get on the internet. You're going to look up your candidates. What district am I in? Who are my candidates? You're going to go to their websites. You're going to go to their Facebook pages. You're going to go to their Twitters. You're going to share that information, okay? You're going to share those pages with your friends. Your job is to convince as many people as possible to change to vote for your candidate. to vote for your candidate. Yes, and Janet, a perfect question. Here's something very important, okay? Very important. Janet says, in Illinois, what if you're in a blue state, you guys? What if you're in a ridiculously blue state and your candidates are with a weak GOP that doesn't have a lot of cojones and doesn't do much to actually run candidates? And what are you going to do? Find your candidates, find the ones you can get along with, find the ones you can support, and support those ones. Send phone calls, do phone calls for them, send texts to your friends and neighbors, keep them in your conversation bank. Hey, I'm going to be voting for this guy. You guys, have you heard about so and so? When the conversation comes up, make the conversation come up. Yes, even in blue Illinois, even in blue DC, we need to start to support sensible principles. Sensible principles. While you're at it, learn the dumb principles, especially if you're in a blue state. Here's extra blue state advice. Learn the positions of the Democrat candidates that suck. Learn the bad stuff that the Democrats want to do. So you can go, oh, so you like so-and-so? Yeah, you know what? I don't like this, though. That's what I don't like about him. And you have something to say, not just, oh, he's a Democrat. But you have, oh, he wants to do this policy that's going to cost millions of dollars and we don't even know where the money's going to come from and he has no accountability. That's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. You have to get educated about these races. Supporting your candidate can mean one of two things. It can mean getting the vote out for your candidate. That's going to be really important. That is going to be really important. But supporting your candidate can also mean fighting against his opponent, pushing back against his opponent, reducing confidence in his opponent in the voters that you talk to and that you interact with. So there's two ways to do it. Engage both. Engage both. It's time to get re-involved. We need everyone to make sure that they have figured out, learned, gone to the website, made sure you know how to register voters. It's not that hard. Make sure you know how to give people information when you're talking to people. When the subject comes up and you see someone who's positive, responding, yes, I agree with you on this. Oh, we do gotta pay attention. We do gotta vote. Ask them, are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? It's so important that you ask these questions. Get people registered. Get people engaged in the political process. Let people know who's running. Let people know. That's why you got to know. I can't learn. Oh, Nick, you're lucky. You have John James in Michigan. He's fantastic. I love John James. This is the thing. You got to learn. You got to know. I can't know them all for you. Everybody is really slow and kind of, we're not voting at 100% capacity. It's not like everybody in the country is voting. It's not like everybody is getting out there and knows these answers. And I know that's frustrating, especially for those of us who pay attention, who watch podcasts, who follow news, who follow our Q drops, even whatever we're doing of the day that makes us pay attention so much to knowing what's going on in our country, right? Whatever that is, other people aren't doing it. They have lives, they have other things. They're just kind of getting along with their way. So it's okay to need to teach people a little bit. It's okay to know a few things and to be able to share that information with other people and give people good reasons why they should support a candidate. And you don't have to work for the campaign. You don't need a button. You don't need a sticker. If you're a call them, ask them for a button or sticker. Say, hey, I talk about you guys all the time. Can I get a button? Feel free to do that. I'm just saying you don't need to be officially involved to support candidates. You don't need to be officially involved to encourage an election to go one way or the other, to encourage referendums. You don't need to be connected. You can just be a person and support a candidate and tell other people about it. As we know, in the midterm election, my Patriot Friends were able to get hundreds of people to the polls. Why? Because we took it upon ourselves to schedule ride shares to make sure, hey, I will come drive you to the polls. If you need a ride to the polls, I'll drive you. Okay? Making sure people got to the polls to vote, making sure people got home. Many, many ways that you can help and you can move an election in one direction or another. So important that we get involved in doing that. Now, the president is going to start holding rallies again, or he would like to in the next few weeks. I think we need to continue to push at the president that we want that. I want you guys to, we should be tweeting the president. We should be writing the president, emailing the president, letting him know not only where we up for our rallies, but we'd love to see we want 4th of July fireworks here in Washington, D.C. I've been pushing for this for many weeks now. The mayor in D.C. has caused great conflict over these protests. We certainly see a huge battle brewing when it comes to whether or not oh yeah, see, I'm gonna put this up. I'm sorry to interrupt myself, but this is Jill. This is Jill says I received second home COVID test, $119, so I can go to my second dermatologist appointment for tattoo removal. Dr. Lavender knows if I go to my local hospital, I'll get a fake positive and he can't laser me. Isn't that ridiculous? Isn't that ridiculous? Added unnecessary costs for something that is literally less dangerous than an average flu. And all of this costs and shenanigans and manipulation and control. This is why we need to keep pushing back. We also need to continue to keep letting the president know we support him and his efforts to reopen and his decisions to start having large gatherings again. If we can use the energy of the president to push that forward, it's going to make it more and more able to push the rest of reopening in each of these states. So it's kind of a nice balance we have right now, folks. It's kind of a nice balance between the president and the what we've seen with the protests, what we've seen with the Democrats and what they're trying to do. You know, the president is actually in a great place. He's been telling everyone we need to reopen. And now, of course, we see with the Democrats this ridiculous show of fake virus concern when, of course, when an issue that's important to them comes up, everyone can gather and protest in thousands and thousands of groups of people, groups of thousands and thousands of people. And it really only depends on whether or not you agree with their politics as to whether or not you're a dangerous individual trying to destroy all of humanity, or you're a noble protester trying to save all of humanity, but of course immune from virus spread. So now here's where it becomes important that we push and we give the president that kind of support. These rallies, the enthusiasm behind the president are not only going to move more votes towards the president, as we know, okay? They're also going to move the economies of those areas up. How's it going, Loretta? The economies of those areas up. So places where we bring Trump rallies, there'll be folks there to go to restaurants, folks there to go to stores, folks there to get gasoline, lots of commerce and business economics going into that community, into that area. Yes, I love Senator Mastriano, and Russ Diamond, the Pennsylvania folks are absolutely they're just giving Governor Wolf. I'm sorry, I'm responding to Gary Goley. Yes. Love these guys up in Pennsylvania, really sticking it to their governor, doing some great work. So there's other folks even probably in your state working on it already. If not, you yourself can get involved. Just write a letter. You don't need people. Like I said, you don't need an organization to get involved. You can get involved yourself. You can join others as well. If you see other people doing some great work, join in behind them. Following them on Facebook is a great way because then you can find out what other events they're doing. For example, right now, I need to do some research because there's a team of attorneys that are actually suing the mayor of DC for putting up Black Lives Matter. So on 16th Street in front of the White House, they are suing her under the religious establishment clause or something. So it's a very interesting case, and I've learned a little bit about it, but I couldn't tell you the names of the people who are hosting it, although they are friends of friends, not direct friends of mine, but friends of friends. So I've got to do a little research on that as well. And so we're going to see how how that pushes forward. But this is the kind of thing we need to engage in. We need to continue to push in these lawsuits. Some of these are going to be very successful. We need to continue to push in our public pressure, just letting our legislative officials and our elected officials know we're not happy. We don't tolerate this, and we're going to complain, and we're going to vote them out, and we're going to sue them, and we're going to do whatever it is necessary to get them to listen to the will of the people. And that's what's important. We continue to push that forward. So important. Yes. Oh, this is great advice. Gary says, we are getting the word out. Tweet the president, VP, and press secretary. And those are good things to tweet. I also add Don Jr., but he also includes Rudy Giuliani. Those are some great people to tweet as well. It's great to continue to try to engage. The Trump administration does listen. They do listen. They do listen. So it's important to, if you have an issue, and we have many issues, obviously let the president know you support his gatherings, you support Trump rallies again, and you let him know that you even more so let him know that you support him by helping get the vote out this November, helping make sure that we not only get the vote out for the president, but we get the vote out for our Congress, for the Senate, that we are able to take back Congress and the Senate. There's a lot of energy. In fact, in these times, in these trying times, I hate to say those words, but in these very difficult, violent times where the left is particularly aggressive, what happens is you have a lot of folks who support the president, but they do so quietly. They do so quietly because they're so nervous about the culture. They're so nervous about the culture around them, judging them, being negative and having a negative impact on their life. So they just don't say anything about it. They might nod and go along with, okay, yeah, sure, Democrats, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes down to it, when they get into the voting booth, they vote for Trump. We saw an immense amount of voters surprise Trump voters in the 2016 election. That's how we elected President Trump in the first place. We will see those again. So there's a lot of possibility. It takes someone like you to get the word out about the candidates to support, to get the word about the candidates to avoid. So important that we get that message out, that they get their message out. I'm going to pull this gentleman up, mostly because I think he's a shutdowner, and, we love to have a chance to talk with the shutdowners. He says, reopen the economy should not be a political stance. This is for the survival and well-being of the entire nation. Yeah, opening is. You must reopen. We must open to survive. If we cannot reopen, if we not get our economy going, if we not get our hospitals going again in full capacity, because many hospitals have shut down because of these shutdown orders, because we did not have the COVID patients necessary to keep those hospitals full, as we said. But unfortunately, what that's caused is many hospitals to actually lose capacity, to have to lay off workers. We need to get these things open. We need these things open. Okay, good. Oh, good. Thank you, Lee Michael. To be clear, he's not a shutdowner. He wants the economy reopened. Great. This is why text is so important to understand. So yes, we agree. Reopening is not a political stance. Unfortunately, the Democrats have made it a political stance. They've made it a political stance. And it's interesting when you push back on this issue for quite some time, as I have, when you push on this reopening issue, you'll find that stance. It's kind of ridiculous. You say, how could you want the economy shut down? But then you see what's happened in these riots, you've seen what happened in these protests and these violent events, and then you see the left suggesting that we want to defund the police. So you've seen the acts of violence for which you need police, for which you need them to have, military and riot equipment, and then you see the result of what would happen, and then they want to defund them. Okay, well, we need the police. This is what happened when we had this many police. We obviously need more police. We obviously need more police. Yeah, and even funny, I'm going to put this up, Lee Michael, for a second. What's sad is to see the media portray people who want the economy reopened as having some sort of political agenda. All Americans need their livelihood. Yes, even more so now that we've seen many cities, many areas affected by these violent protests and riots, even more damage economically, and even more in need of reopening their communities, getting that economic flow going so that we can start to see these communities have the resources to rebuild. We've seen it in Ferguson. We've seen it in many cities. We're going to see it in Minneapolis. Sadly, there are going to be whole areas that won't come back economically because the buildings, the neighborhood were so damaged. The cost to rectifying those buildings, those properties, the cost is too great. And so people are just going to move out. They're just going to move out of those neighborhoods. Now, I'm going to talk about this, like Michael, for just a second, because this is, I think, an important issue, and I want to close on some of the things the left are saying and some of the things that I think are actually more accurate. And Lee Michael says, and I'm just going to pull this up, collegiate studies show that militarized police increase instances of aggression within local police forces. And it says, I do not believe the local police should be given access to military equipment or training, say those sort of tactics for higher levels of enforcement such as SWAT. So I appreciate what you're saying, Lee. And I too often in the past had this idea that, we can't give military equipment to law enforcement, regular law enforcement. That's kind of ridiculous, but this was also in the time where we were seeing before that, law enforcement actually using marijuana laws to create asset forfeiture and taking people's property so that they could fund their police departments. So then we saw a dump of military equipment into the police departments. And, you start to get, they're militarizing the police. Well, then I heard a story out of Ferguson, out of the Ferguson riots. And here we have local law enforcement who were charged with the duty of protecting the city of Ferguson, protecting the private property and the lives of the residents of Ferguson from these rioters in a large mass civil unrest situation. And these officers under physical attack had no way to actually move in and out of police headquarters, of the police station, out of safety from one area to the next, but for the fact that they had been given through one of these programs to give surplus military equipment. It can no longer be used by the military. Surplus military equipment, so it would otherwise be thrown out or recycled or landfilled. Surplus military equipment given to the police department. These officers were able to use an armored personnel carrier as a shield to move in and to protect officers, to remove officers from areas of danger in ways that they would not have. So as we see these situations in our cities, we are creating the idea that the police do not need to be militarized is actually being proven false by the recurrence of large events of civil unrest that damage property and risk lives. So in fact, while average police do not need access to this equipment on the daily basis, in fact, what we need from police officers is not a dependence on technology, but a dependence on community. We need to see beat cops again in their regular uniforms, walking the beat, getting to know people in the neighborhood, getting to know their own community. That certainly is a great way to improve community policing, to improve that community relationship. But I disagree that we should not be providing our law enforcement access to these types of military equipment that specifically can be used and are vital to be used in large civil unrest or riot situations. It is because of this military equipment that we are able to protect our officers, and frankly, more of this military equipment would prevent what we've seen in Minneapolis, what we're seeing now in Seattle, with individuals having stormed the city hall, what we've seen with these takeovers, these burnings, and these destructions of buildings. And in many places, officers overwhelmed by the rioters and unable to respond other than to move back to a defensive posture merely to protect their own safety, if they can do that. This is unacceptable. We cannot have our law enforcement under siege. How we have increased law enforcement to the level of weaponry they have now is because gangs continue to use more and more powerful weapons. Well, the greatest gangs of all now, the communists, are actually now using the mob as a powerful weapon. Our law enforcement officials need to have the equipment necessary to deal with that. And that is going to be smoke bombs. It's going to be tear gas. It's going to be crowd control mechanisms. It's going to be riot protection. It's going to be rubber bullets. It's going to be larger weaponry. It's going to be armored vehicles that are protected. It's going to be things that look a little militaristic. You know, it's this idea that things can't, if the cops look too scary, it's bad for the community. Well, you know what's really bad for the community? Burning down everything. I'd rather my cops look scary and they are protected and they don't get hurt and injured and our buildings don't burn down than the cops don't look scary, but then the buildings burn down and the cops get injured. You see what I'm saying? It's dumb that we have this idea that cops have to look a certain way. Cops have to be prepared to do their job, and their job is to protect private property and lives. Period. That's their job. So they need to be prepared to protect private property and lives. They need to do that if on a one-on-one situation with a break-in kind of thing. They need to on a mugging kind of on the street kind of thing, or in a mob action situation, or riots, civil unrest, etc. Especially if we're going to live in a world where in Democrat communities, the Democrats don't want to call in the National Guard. They don't want to avail themselves of the military assets that we have to protect our streets, to protect our businesses. So that's my statement on this. We need to demilitarize the police. We actually, the reason we have the police getting the equipment they do, and as long as we continue to have surplus equipment, I think it should be provided to law enforcement for these circumstances, because a lot of lives, a lot of millions of dollars could have been saved had our police, had the Minneapolis police even, had better equipment, were more prepared to take on large angry mobs. And frankly, I'm sorry, if you're storming the police station and trying to burn it down, you get tear gas. Do you want me to cry about it? I'm not going to cry about it. You're storming a police station and you're trying to burn it down. I'm surprised you don't get machine gun fire. You know what I'm saying? So we need to support our law enforcement. That's the last thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to leave you on this. If you see an officer this week, thank them in person. If you don't see an officer this week, call your local sheriff's department, call your local police precinct. Don't call 311. Call the precinct itself. Stop into the precinct. Stop in and see an officer on the side of the road, taking a break from his daily activities. Thank them. Please thank an officer. I've called over 20 different precincts today myself. You can call in other cities. I called Baltimore as well as DC. Call your police departments. Let them know you appreciate what they're doing. Let them know you appreciate their service to your community. Let them know you support them and you stand with them. They need it now more than ever. You're going to feel so good when you get that voice back on the phone and they say, "Thank you, ma'am," or "Thank you, sir, so much." It really means a lot to us that you would stop and take time to thank us. That tone in their voice is going to mean so much. So please thank an officer, thank every officer you see this week and every week, but particularly now in the case of these shutdowns. So that's our show for today, folks. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We're going to be back again on Friday. As always, I believe we will be trying to have some guests on Friday. So stay tuned. We're still getting back into the regular rhythm now that the riots have calmed down. DC is starting to go back to normal. We still have protesters, smaller and smaller groups. It's going to be there forever, and we're going to be in a long fight. So continue to be in a long fight with me. We're going to reopen this country together. We are going to get back to our old normal, regular normal. And we're going to do that as we elect our president, Donald Trump, and we take the Senate back and the House back even more, and the House back. We're going to do it all. Until the next time. I love. Gary, this has never happened to me. But I will say this. If you approach law enforcement in an aggressive manner, you get pepper sprayed or tased immediately. If it doesn't stop you, sorry, but you're going to get ventilated by a service woman. Yes, in an aggressive manner. Now, I approach them in an aggressive manner all the time. It's more of a warm and loving manner. So please do approach your law enforcement in a warm and loving manner and give them a positive reinforcement. And Lee, I'm going to put this up to say, Lee says, thank you for sharing your opinion. I greatly appreciate any and all points of view as they open doors for further understanding. So it's all about dialogue, folks. Dialogue. So enjoy your week. Please thank an officer. Talk to your friends. Find out who your candidates are. Find out who your congressional and your Senate candidates are. It's so important that we get involved in this race. Write your mayor, write your governor, tell them reopen 100% right now. If they can riot, we can reopen 100%. Until next time, everybody, this is your girl, Suzzanne Monk. Trumping out.